Imagine you're gone from home for 20 years, and when you finally come back, strangers are living in your house, eating your food, and trying to steal your family. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Odysseus, one of the most famous characters in Greek mythology. People call him a hero, but the truth is, Odysseus wasn't like superheroes you see in movies. He wasn't always kind. He wasn't always fair. But he was very smart, and he would do almost anything to survive. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why Odysseus is remembered as one of the cleverest people who ever lived, and why some people think he was actually kind of scary. So let's go back to ancient Greece, about 3,000 years ago. Back then, the world was not safe like today. There were no phones, no police cars, no big hospitals, and no rules that everyone followed. Kings had to protect their kingdoms with soldiers, and if another kingdom wanted your land, they would just attack. This was a time when being strong mattered. But being clever mattered even more. And Odysseus? Odysseus was the king of cleverness. Odysseus was the king of a small island called Ithaca. He had a wife named Penelope and a son named Telemachus. He loved his family, but one day, he was forced to leave them behind because of a huge war called the Trojan War. The Trojan War started because a prince from Troy took a Greek queen named Helen. The Greeks were furious and decided to attack Troy to get her back. So they sailed to Troy and fought for a long, long time. And when I say long, I mean 10 years. 10 years is basically forever when you're a kid. Imagine being stuck in a fight from kindergarten all the way until high school. That's how long it lasted. The city of Troy had giant walls, and the Greeks couldn't break through them. They tried everything. Fighting. Attacking. Sneaking in. Nothing worked. But Odysseus had an idea. He said, "What if we trick them?" So the Greeks built a giant wooden horse. It was so big it looked like a statue. But inside the horse, Odysseus hid Greek soldiers. Then the Greeks pretended to leave. They sailed away and made it look like they gave up. The Trojans saw the horse and thought, "Wow! The Greeks must be saying sorry. This is probably a gift." So they dragged the wooden horse into their city. That night, the hidden soldiers climbed out, opened the city gates, and the Greek army rushed in. And that's how Troy was defeated. Now, here's the important part. This plan was super smart, but it was also mean and dangerous. When Troy fell, many people were hurt, and the city was destroyed. So right away, we learn something about Odysseus. Odysseus was not the kind of hero who plays fair. He was the kind of hero who wins by outsmarting people. After the war ended, Odysseus finally thought, "Yes, I can go home now." But guess what? He didn't get home quickly. His trip home took 10 more years. That means Odysseus was gone for a total of 20 years. During his journey, he faced storms, monsters, and all kinds of terrifying things. And the most famous monster he met was a cyclops. A cyclops is a giant creature with one big eye in the middle of its face. One day, Odysseus and his men landed on an island and found a cave filled with food. They went inside to explore. Bad idea. Because the cave belonged to a cyclops named Polyphemus. When Polyphemus came back, he trapped Odysseus and his men inside the cave by rolling a giant rock over the entrance. Then he started eating Odysseus' soldiers like they were snacks. That's horrifying, but Odysseus didn't panic. He didn't scream and cry. Instead, he used his brain. Odysseus gave Polyphemus strong wine, which made him sleepy. Then Odysseus told the Cyclops his name was Nobody. Polyphemus believed him. When the Cyclops fell asleep, Odysseus and his men sharpened a stick and stabbed Polyphemus in his one eye. Polyphemus screamed in pain and called for help. Other Cyclopes came running and asked, "Who hurt you?" And Polyphemus yelled, "Nobody hurt me." So the other Cyclopes said, "Well, if nobody hurt you, then stop yelling," and they walked away. That was one of the smartest tricks ever. Odysseus and his men escaped by hiding under sheep as the sheep walked out of the cave. They were finally safe. But then Odysseus did something really stupid. As he sailed away, he started bragging. He shouted back, "My real name is Odysseus." Why would he do that? Because he wanted to show off. He wanted the Cyclops to know exactly who beat him. And that was a big mistake. Because Polyphemus wasn't just any monster. He was the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Poseidon heard about what happened and became furious. So Poseidon punished Odysseus by sending storms and causing shipwrecks. Poseidon basically made the ocean angry at Odysseus for years. And this is a big lesson from Odysseus' story. Odysseus was smart, but he was also too proud. Now, something really sad happens during Odysseus' long journey. At the beginning, Odysseus had many ships and many loyal men. They were his friends and soldiers who fought with him in the war. But as the journey went on, bad things kept happening. Some men were killed by monsters. Some men died in storms. Some men made bad choices and got punished by the gods. And slowly, Odysseus lost everyone. By the end of the story, Odysseus is completely alone. And that's actually one of the saddest parts of the whole myth. Because Odysseus survives, but he loses his entire crew. Finally, after all those years, Odysseus arrives home in Ithaca. But home is not the way he left it. While he was gone, a group of men called the suitors moved into his palace. These men wanted to marry Penelope because they thought Odysseus was dead. But these suitors were rude. They didn't just ask politely. They took over Odysseus' house. They ate his food. They drank his wine. They acted like they owned everything. And they kept pressuring Penelope to marry one of them. Penelope didn't want to marry any of them. She stayed loyal to Odysseus. But she was trapped because the suitors refused to leave. Now, Odysseus could have walked into his palace and said, "Hey, I'm back." But he didn't. Instead, he disguised himself as a poor beggar. Because Odysseus didn't trust anyone. He wanted to see who was still loyal and who had turned against him. He watched the suitors. He listened to them. He planned. And when the time was right, Odysseus revealed who he really was and fought them. In the end, Odysseus defeated the suitors and took his palace back. In ancient Greek times, people thought this was justice. They believed the king had the right to punish people who disrespected his home. But today, some people might say, "Whoa, that was intense." And that's why Odysseus is such a complicated character. Because he is not a perfect hero. He loves his family. He is incredibly brave. He is one of the smartest characters in mythology. But he is also dangerous. He lies a lot. He tricks people. And sometimes, he hurts others to get what he wants. So was Odysseus real? Historians think there may have been real wars like the Trojan War, and the city of Troy might have been real too. Archaeologists have found ruins that could be Troy. But the Odyssey story was written down hundreds of years later, so parts of it might have been changed or exaggerated. That means Odysseus might have been based on a real person, or he might be a mix of different warriors all turned into one legend. But whether he was real or not, Odysseus represents something important. He represents a person who survives through intelligence. Not by being the strongest. Not by being the nicest. But by thinking faster than everyone else. And the biggest truth behind Odysseus is this. He wasn't a superhero. He was a human being living in a violent world. And he shows us that being clever can help you survive, but being too proud can cause big trouble. Odysseus teaches us that heroes are not always perfect. Sometimes, heroes make mistakes. Sometimes, heroes do things that aren't kind. And sometimes, the smartest person in the room can also be the scariest. So the real Odysseus is not just a cool adventure story. It's a story about survival. It's a story about bravery. And it's a story about how a person can go through so much hardship that they change forever. And if you found this story interesting, you're going to love the next video where we explain Achilles, the strongest warrior in Greek mythology. So make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think Odysseus was a hero or a trickster?